Over the past 20 years, the food industry has experienced tremendous change. New products have come on the market, products that often require sophisticated packaging. Advances in technology have resulted in greater levels of productivity. Even consumers have changed, becoming more active and health conscious. The result has been an increased demand for fresh food and food that requires little or no preparation. As food processors search for ways to meet consumer demands, one thing remains the same: the need for an effective food plant sanitation program. A recent government report has labeled sanitation as the biggest problem found in plants. Why is it so important? Ineffective sanitation practices can result in the transfer of harmful microorganisms to food. Sometimes this can lead to foodborne illness outbreaks. The results can be devastating. Product contamination can severely injure your customers' health and damage your company's reputation. Microbial contamination may decrease your product's shelf life and overall quality, or make it unacceptable for use as an ingredient in other food products. Customers unhappy with your products will eventually stop buying them. Over the long term, it could mean a loss of jobs in your company. What do we mean by the term sanitation? Sanitation is the creation and maintenance of conditions favorable to good health. It involves both actions of cleaning and sanitizing. Cleaning is the elimination of visible and invisible soil from the food processing environment. Soil is simply any unwanted material, like food residue. Visible food residue is usually easy to find and remove. The production environment must also be free of harmful microorganisms. Although cleaning will remove soil and may reduce the level of microorganisms, it is the sanitizing step that kills microorganisms and thereby reduces the risk of product contamination. Sanitizing is defined as the act of reducing the number of microorganisms to safe levels on clean surfaces. This is a big challenge because microorganisms are invisible and can be found just about everywhere. There are major sources of contamination in raw materials and ingredients. They can be found on manufacturing equipment. All employees carry them, and this can become a significant issue with poor employee hygiene practices. Microorganisms can also be found on packaging materials, in wet product residue accumulating on the production floor, on floor mats, on non-product contact surfaces, on buttons and switches, on doorknobs, in pools of water on the floor, and on rodents and other pests that enter the plant. As you can see, microorganisms can come from a lot of places. If there is a source of food, water, sufficient time, and the temperature is favorable, microorganisms can multiply at a very rapid rate, potentially reaching very high numbers. When an area of your plant contains food and water and cannot be effectively cleaned and sanitized in a reasonable time, you create what is known as a growth niche. There are many places that can become growth niches. Some common locations are ledges, equipment seams, cracks in floors or walls, drains, absorbent materials, and manufacturing equipment. Some growth niches require special attention apart from your daily sanitation duties. Your sanitation procedure should describe their locations and how often to clean them. There are, however, other potential growth niches that must be addressed in your regularly scheduled cleaning and sanitizing. Let's look at some examples in a typical plant. Cracks in floors are a common growth niche in many plants. All floors eventually crack to some degree, especially in areas that see a lot of heavy equipment traffic. Growth niches can occur if food and water become trapped in these small spaces. Floors not properly sloped to the drain will allow water to accumulate. When this happens, the site becomes a breeding ground for microorganisms. If the water is kicked up by foot traffic or a forklift moving through it, tiny water droplets can become airborne and move throughout the plant. The same danger exists with clogged floor drains. Growth niches can also be found on absorbent materials. Common examples include tape improperly used to make a temporary repair, exposed insulation that traps water, and some conveyor belts. These materials are difficult to clean, sanitize, and dry. They can become sources of microorganisms which contaminate the environment and product. Manufacturing equipment can also harbor growth niches and be difficult to clean. This meat slicer is a good example. As you can see, it was designed with many recessed areas where food residue can become trapped. It will require special attention during the sanitation process. Once microorganisms are present in the environment, they can be carried around the plant through ventilation systems, by employees who fail to use good hygienic practices, and by cross-contamination. For example, using a stack of pallets in the finished product area that came from raw material receiving. This can cause the finished products to become cross-contaminated with microorganisms from the raw ingredients. Rodents, insects, and birds that enter your plant can also cause contamination as they move throughout the building. We've now looked at the many sources of microorganisms in your plant, the conditions that allow them to grow, where they grow, and how they can be transported around. In the second half of the video, we'll learn how to remove these microorganisms from the plant. Earlier in the program, we learned that microorganisms will grow rapidly if there is a source of food, water, sufficient time, and the temperature is favorable. For example, if you work in a dairy, a beverage plant, a produce processing plant, or a meat plant, conditions are favorable for the growth of microorganisms. There's an abundance of food in the environment, plenty of water, sufficient time, and the temperature is favorable. That's why your role in sanitation is so important. In the second part of this video, we will be looking at the 8 steps you must follow to clean and sanitize your production area. The first step is to remove all waste materials. 2. Pre-rinse the equipment. 3. Clean and scrub the equipment. 4. Rinse the equipment. 5. Visually inspect the equipment. 6. Wash and rinse the floors. 7. Sanitize the floors and equipment. And 8. Remove excess moisture. Before you begin the sanitation process, make sure there is no food product remaining in the production room. It should be removed and placed in proper storage. Then you can proceed to the first step. Remove all waste materials from the processing environment. This would include any packaging materials that may have fallen. Sweep or squeegee any product residue into a pile so it can be thrown into the inedibles container. This container will be clearly marked. It's important that you don't clog the drain with waste materials. This could cause dirty fluids to be transferred into the processing environment. After you have removed all waste materials, you're ready for the next step. Step 2 is the pre-rinse step. Begin by protecting any special equipment or parts which could be damaged by water. Do this before any water is used on the equipment or in the area. After waterproofing the equipment, start to remove the visible soil. Whenever possible, avoid the fireman mentality of blasting food residue with a high-pressure hose. This could cause contaminated water droplets to become airborne and move throughout the plant. Rinse away pieces of product, packaging material, or other visible soil on the equipment. Make a special effort to look for any product that might be hidden. Pre-rinse the line in the same direction as the product flows. This will make it easier to keep track of the work you've done. Start with the first piece of equipment and keep rinsing through the process. Some of the equipment may need to be taken apart in order to get at all of the hidden food residue inside. Set those pieces aside on a clean surface like a cart for cleaning and sanitizing. Don't put equipment parts on the floor. They can become contaminated and make your sanitizing job more difficult. When all of the visible soil has been rinsed off, you can move on to the next step. Step 3 is cleaning and scrubbing. We'll use a detergent to remove any remaining soil. Detergent is designed to loosen soil from the surface and keep it suspended so it doesn't resettle. Foam is a common type of detergent used within the food industry because it can be quickly and easily applied. However, it is not the only type. What your plant uses will depend upon your operation, the products being produced, and the current technology within the cleaning chemical industry. An important factor in cleaning is the proper water temperature for the type of detergent being used and the type of soil being removed. Be thorough when you apply the detergent. Every square inch of the equipment must be covered. Some equipment may require extra scrubbing to remove stubborn soil. Find out which scrubbing tools are permissible. Detergent must remain on the equipment long enough to be effective. Follow the specifications for the correct exposure time. In Step 4, fresh water is used to rinse away all detergent residue and any remaining soil. Rinsing is important because the steps that follow depend on the equipment being free of all residue. Again, rinse in the direction of product flow to help keep track of what you've rinsed. At this point in the cleaning process, all equipment should be free of visible soil. In Step 5, a visual inspection is conducted to find any particles or residue that might have been overlooked. If it's safe and possible to do so, run the machinery during your inspection because it will be easier to find hidden residue. Be sure to check with your supervisor for permission to run the equipment. When you're certain that no visible soil or detergent remains, you may want to have someone else check the area as well. 2 sets of eyes are always better than 1. It may help to use a flashlight to find any visible soil that might have been hidden and therefore missed during the cleaning process. If any is found, the equipment must be cleaned again. Once cleaning has been completed, you can go on to Step 6, washing and rinsing the floors. Chances are the floors were probably covered with detergent when the equipment was originally cleaned. There could, however, be areas away from the machinery that were missed. This is the time to clean those floor surfaces. It may be necessary to scrub the cleaner with a floor brush or machine to loosen any grease or food residue. Once it has been allowed to stand for the appropriate time, rinse away the residue. Avoid causing splashes or aerosols while you rinse the floor, or it may recontaminate the equipment you just cleaned. After this step, the equipment and floor should be free of visible soil. Although you may be unable to see any food residue, invisible soil or bacteria might still be present. In Step 7, sanitizer is applied to the floors and equipment to kill the remaining microorganisms that were not removed by the first 6 steps. Follow the specifications for the correct concentration and contact time. Concentrations above and below the manufacturer's recommendations can be dangerous. Floors should always be sanitized first, before the equipment. to avoid possible contamination by splashing. Be thorough as you cover the floor. Don't forget the hard-to-reach places. When the floor surface has been completely sanitized, move on to the equipment. Start with the equipment support structures and work your way up to the product contact surfaces. Make sure all surfaces are completely covered with the sanitizer. Once again, sanitize in the direction of the product flow. When you are done with the floor and equipment, move on to the final step, removing excess moisture from the environment. Excess water will encourage the multiplication of bacteria. In most cases, you can allow the equipment to air dry. A clean squeegee may be used to remove excess water from the floors and underneath equipment. More well-equipped plants reduce the relative humidity, which causes the water to evaporate quickly. This is the preferable method of moisture reduction. Before production resumes, your company may want to take environmental samples at various points throughout the plant. These samples are used to confirm that the environment is free of harmful microorganisms and that the cleaning and sanitizing process has been effective. Your company's sanitation program is dependent on the successful completion of each step. Let's review the 8 steps with special emphasis on the key points. Step 1. Remove all waste materials from the processing environment. This would include any packaging materials that may have fallen. Sweep or squeegee any product residue into a pile so it can be thrown into the inedibles container. It's important that you don't clog the drain with waste materials. This could cause dirty fluids to be transferred into the processing environment. Step 2. The pre-rinse step. Be sure to first cover any equipment that could be harmed by water. Then pre-rinse all visible soil from the equipment. Rinse the line in the direction of product flow. Some of the equipment may need to be taken apart in order to get at all of the hidden food residue inside. Set those pieces aside on a clean surface like a cart for cleaning and sanitizing. Step 3. Clean and scrub the equipment, one piece at a time and in the direction of product flow. Be thorough when you apply the detergent. Every square inch of the equipment must be covered. Some equipment may require extra scrubbing to remove stubborn soil. Find out which scrubbing tools are permissible. Step 4. Rinse away the detergent. Rinsing is important because the steps that follow depend on the equipment being free of all residue. Step 5. Visually inspect the equipment for any visible soil. It may help to use a flashlight to find any visible soil that might have been hidden and therefore missed during the cleaning process. If any is found, the equipment must be cleaned again. Step 6. Wash and rinse the floors. Cover the entire floor with cleaner. It may be necessary to scrub the cleaner with a floor brush or machine to loosen any grease or food residue. Once it has been allowed to stand for the appropriate time, rinse away the residue. Step 7. Sanitize the floors and equipment. Floors should always be sanitized first, before the equipment, to avoid possible contamination by splashing. Be thorough as you cover the floor. When the floor surface has been completely sanitized, move on to the equipment. And finally, Step 8. Do your best to remove excess moisture before production resumes. By performing each step to the best of your abilities, you will be doing your part to ensure a safe and wholesome food product.